Hey everyone, welcome to Aussie Footy Chats, episode 15, the Melbourne Trade Chats. So I'm going to talk about the Melbourne Football Club today, who they brought in, the trades, who left, free agency, and their picks. So we're going to start off with their season this year. Their season wasn't that successful this year. Unfortunately, they didn't play finals. They finished outside the top 8, and they finished quite low on the ladder. And they've struggled sort of previous seasons, sort of since their 2021 premiership. And now they've sacked their coach, their premiership winning coach from that year, Simon Goodwin. And that resulted in a total rebuild for the club. And they elected to bring in the Geelong assistant Stephen King, former Geelong premiership player and ruckman. And he's done a stint there. And they've called him over. I believe he was the ruck coach, and he presented quite a good role that he could do at the Melbourne Football Club and won that position. So he's come in, they've kicked the restart button, and so they've got rid of two of their star players. So Christian Petrarca, who I mentioned on previous podcasts for Gold Coast, left the Melbourne Football Club. He was traded Gold Coast. He was an inside mid, one of their star players, Norm Smith medalist. You know, a very sort of big inside mid who can play that half forward role. Also, while he can kick a few goals. So he's a talented player. So yeah, he left for 3 first-round picks, 2 of this season. So that is number 7 and number 8, and also a first-round pick for next year in 2026. I believe that won't be as high as those ones. It'll be a bit lower because I expect Gold Coast to be quite good next year. So yeah, they won't have a first round pick and Melbourne will have them. So for the 29-year-old star. And also Clayton Oliver was told by the club to explore his options. So basically told that he'll be up for trade. He also, I think, wanted to be traded in the end too. So it was a bit of a mutual thing. I don't know if he was upset that he was told he was going to be traded. It's all up in the air still. But yeah, I believe he was happy to sort of go and meet with other clubs too. And Melbourne were happy to pay that at least $700,000 of his $1.1 million contract. So a bit of a salary cap dump. They accepted a 2026 third round pick for the 4-time club champion, best and fairest. So yeah, they let him go to GWS for virtually not a real lot, where I think Adelaide were after him previous trade periods, and they were going to offer him a deal. Maybe they could have brokered a deal, and they would have actually probably got a first-round pick for him, but no, they no longer have that anymore. So they essentially let him walk for a third-round pick, while also unloading $700,000 on their contract for him. So yeah, they make up $700,000 in the cap space while still paying for some of his contract, which also happened with Brodie Grundy. They offloaded some of his contract too. So their list management have had a little bit of those issues lately by financially sort of not being set with the salary, which could hurt the club for a year or two through its rebuild. But being in a rebuild and they're not sort of going after many sort of players or trying to attract some players, although they did during this trade period. So it's good that they've done that too. But so, yeah, they're sort of offsetting their cap. So in future trade periods, they could bring in some players or pay extra players for their contracts, which is important. So they're going to balance that out. So, I mean, for long term, it will be better for the club. Short term, yeah, they're going to pay some money for a player that's no longer there. And so let's talk about the players that they also sort of brought in. So Jack Steele was from the St Kilda Football Club, former captain of the club. And now he has decided to leave, or the club traded him because of the amount of players they brought in. I'll explain that a bit with St Kilda's podcast. So yeah, they've traded him. They accepted a 2027 third round pick for Jack Steele, which is not really much for a guy that is generally a good player. He's a bit older now. He's a midfielder. He plays both on the inside and the outside quite well, and he's a bit of a tagger. So he can play amongst other midfielders and tries to do a bit of a shutdown role. Good running abilities, and it's quite interesting that Melbourne accepted such a late deal for him for a third round pick of 2027. That being said, other clubs, I'm surprised other clubs didn't come in and try a look at him. Collingwood, for example, with Pendlebury getting older, Sidebottom getting older. I know Jack Steele's a bit older himself. He's more on that 30 bracket sort of thing than what he is, the under 25. So yeah, they didn't really give up a lot to get him. So good on Melbourne for making that deal and bringing in some experience after losing some experience. But yeah, there's some clubs, like I could even probably put Hawthorn or the Adelaide Crows, that may be looking to bolster their midfield. If a third round pick was there just to grab him, I don't understand why clubs were so put off him. Whether he may have not wanted to leave Melbourne and stuff like that, like Victoria, the state, to go interstate. So yeah, there may be that. But yeah, they accepted a third round pick, which is not a real lot. Jack Steele sort of struggled a bit last year with his form. But yeah, he's carried that club for a fair while at St Kilda. So now it comes over to a team that's sort of rebuilding and re-establishing itself. And we'll also talk about Max Heath crossed over from St Kilda. He's a ruckman, young ruckman. So obviously with them getting Tom De Koning, it's opened up a ruck role for them to put Tom De Koning in there and no longer have those sort of available spots. So Max Heath's been on the list for a little while and he's looking for opportunity. So he decided to leave and go to Melbourne, which he'll learn ruckcraft underneath Max Gawn, who's, I think he'll be 35 this year, Max. He's one of the all-time great ruckmans of the modern era and premiership player, captain at the moment. So he's sort of had to steady the ship through what you'd call a turbulent time for the club. So he's going to learn under Max Gawn. So yeah, he's took that opportunity, and also because Max Gawn's probably not going to be around for more than probably the next 3 seasons. Max Heath will come in, and he'll be probably take that ruck mantle and move into a position where he can sort of establish himself as ruckman in the AFL. Quite a big guy, sort of somewhat can move around quite well. So it'll be interesting to see. Also, CJ was added from Hawthorn, which we talked a bit about on the last podcast. So yeah, he will make room in their side and get opportunity for him. He played a bit of a mixture of roles at Hawthorn. Didn't quite have established spot. Played sub a lot, so didn't quite get 100% game time and would come on during the game. And I think players like that struggle with their form. It's very hard to just come into a game late and then have an impact and try to keep your spot or make your way into the team the next week. So, yeah, I think, they've picked up a few players. They also got Brody Mychek from the Collingwood Football Club through free agency. He's decided to leave. I'm not sure. It's probably a contractual sort of thing where he's got more length on his contract and money with Collingwood's salary cap being a bit more tight, and maybe was offered more years at the Melbourne Football Club. That being said, he's moved from a reasonably successful side to Melbourne, who are in the rebuilding phase, and he's elected to probably have more stable career, so longer term contract with a bit more money, which he's a premiership player at Collingwood, so he's probably decided to move on from there. and I know that he's pretty well liked, and he'll leave a hole in Collingwood's forward line. He's your sort of second to third key tool. Plays quite well above his head. Pretty good leading mark sort of player, but can sort of one out pretty strong and can clunk a couple good marks and a really good kick. So he'll move into the forward line with the other forward line players at Melbourne. So yeah, he'll help out a few of their younger tools up there. So also the players that have left. So Judd McVie left to Fremantle to go home. And yeah, so he's decided to leave and head home. They'll put a hole in their defense a bit, whether they can get CJ to sort of maybe take that role. But I feel like McVie played a bit taller for his size as well. He was sort of a mid sort of size to, he was sort of a little bit tall, but more of a mid-sized rebounding defender who's good above his head. But maybe they could have CJ come in and play that rebounding role. And also Charlie Spargo, who left to North Melbourne as unrestricted free agent. So yeah, he's a small forward who plays, that pressure role for Melbourne. Short little blonde-haired fella. Quite small, quick around his feet. I think he was in and out of the side this year, so he did struggle with his form, and he's left to go to Clarko's side now, so North Melbourne. And they didn't really get him for much. He's joined them as a free agent. So yeah, North Melbourne had a few players leave, and that's sort of who they got and who they brought in, and explaining some of their roles. So yeah, I'll just quickly talk about the delisted players. So they did delist a few players. So Jack Billings, who was in the trade period a few seasons ago, that was traded from St Kilda to Melbourne. He just sort of didn't quite come along and be the player that they thought that he would be. And so, yeah, his contract's come up to the end and they've delisted him. Kyron Brown, I think that's Nathan Brown's son. Tom Fullerton, Marty Hoare, which is a bit of a surprise. He played a bit of footy this year. Oliver Seston, Will Varel, and Taj Woden. So Taj is his dad played, Shane Woden, Brownlow medalist, and played for Melbourne and was at Collingwood as well. I think he was traded to Collingwood. So yeah, father-son sort of ties there, and yeah, he is being delisted. He did play a few games. The last couple of seasons looked pretty good. Sort of a smaller mid, a linking sort of mid down the outside. Could probably play on the wing. Yeah, a bit of a surprise. Brown's probably in the same sort of spot. Jack Billings is sort of an outside hybrid sort of mid. Wasn't really in and under type player. Probably sort of lacked a bit of polish at times, but yeah, St Kilda moved him on. Melbourne took him, and yeah, just like what I covered before. So yeah, they've got rid of a couple young players. Marty Hoare, he is I think he was a defender, so used him as a defending role, sort of a half-size defender, sort of between the small. Bit surprised they didn't keep him. But yeah, with McVie going, so the coach has come in and delisted those players. He's must have thought with the panel alongside him that their services were no longer warranted at the club. So yeah, that sort of explains what they sort of have done. And we'll talk a bit about their draft picks, who they have for this 2025 AFL draft. So pick 7, 8, 37, 66, 71, 84 and 102. So there's a bit of a gap. So you obviously got the 7 and 8, and then between that it goes up to 37. So a lot later second round sort of pick, almost verging on the third round. And yeah, so they've just quickly go through the list. So that's a bit of the summary and what they've done. So they've it's quite interesting. They exchanged a fourth round pick for 2027, being the first club to officially involve a pick for 2 years into the future of the draft. That was for Max Heath. So that was the first time that was done. Just a fun fact to add in, since they've allowed that rule to change and exchange those future picks like that. So yeah, they traded a pick in 2 years in advance to the next draft. That's the first time it's done. So they got a ruckman in for a pretty cheap price, being that late of a pick. And yeah, pick 7 and 8. You could almost say that they may need a midfielder, and they've got a young ruckman in through the trade. Could they also add another ruckman in, or are they going to go for a midfielder? Probably an inside midfielder, because Clayton and Petrarca were quite sort of similar at being an inside mid. Different type of player still, but yeah, it's still very inside and under. And also losing Jug McVie, will they go for a rebounding defender, or they put CJ in and go for two midfielders? Could they go for a midfielder, inside midfielder, and an outside midfielder for running and speed? It will be interesting to see. Do they go for a key defender to add in with Stephen May as well, sort of being that sort of player that sort of, will be looking to replace in the future? And, those little things. They've got a couple key forwards. Could probably even, being a rebuilding list, they could almost go for each sort of player in each role and have a few years to develop their skills and craft. So that's a bit of overall review on that and the Melbourne Football Club in their trade period. I'm not sure what else I could add to that. They're in the rebuild button, and they've hit the button, and they're at that point now. Like I said, they could almost use a player for every single one of those roles. Picks 7 and 8 are going to be higher talented, higher top end of the draft. Once it gets into 37, 66, 71, 84, 102, can they snag a player that's slipped through? Are they going to go for, a young ruckman that may go higher in the draft, or are they going to go for the two midfielders or a rebounding defender? And also a key position defender that they can replace in the future. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. A lot of mids might go early, and they might sort of snag a taller player later in the draft. It's still to be seen, because you don't know till the draft happens, and some teams may change their position on what they need, and the list managers may, be talking to the coaches, and there may be a change amongst what they feel. So yeah, that covers the Melbourne Football Club. A fair bit of trade and drama that went with it, with two of their star players moving on. Also a younger player going home to his home state. So yeah, I expect Melbourne to struggle for a few years till they get some of the younger players established and into the playing list doing the rebuild. But you never know. You just never know. But I feel, and a lot of experts probably will say the same sort of thing, they've hit the rebuild button. New coach, may take a couple of years for that to happen. So yeah, best of luck to them next year and who they get in the trade period. And yeah, they moved on a few players, got a couple high draft picks in. And I lost a couple good players for not much as well, so there's a blend of that. They've also brought in some experience with Jack Steele, and also a player that wasn't getting much game time this year was CJ. So yeah, under a new team, they can add those players in, and yeah, they might lose a bit of experience, but they also gain some. So yeah, that covers the Melbourne Football Club quite well. And I hope everyone's having a great weekend and enjoy the weekend. And North Melbourne will be next. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the day and cheers. Thank you.